This question says the figure shows a graph of the function of f of x in the xy coordinate plane with a vertex at 1, 9 and zeros at -2 and 4. So we know the vertex, we know the zeros, we have a picture of the parabola that is f of x. We also now know that there is a function g, which is defined by g of x equals -3x plus 2. And it says which statements are true, select all that apply. So the first option that we have says f of -2 is greater than g of -2. So if you remember, this is expressed as f of x. X is our input and f of x is our output. So basically when x is -2, f of -2 would be the y value. Thankfully, we have a graph, which is pretty straightforward. So since I'm comparing f of x with g of x, I will look at my graph of f of x first. When x is -2, y is 0. So for A, f of -2 is 0. We now need to check out and see what is g of -2. So if I wanted to solve for g of -2, I would simply plug in -2 for x. -3 times -2 is 6. 6 plus 2 is 8. So for this first one, it says f is greater than g. That is not true because 8 is obviously greater than 0. All right, let's check option B. So it says f of -1 is less than g of -1. So for this one here, when x is -1, y is 5. F of -1 is +5. I'll do the same exact thing that I just did before, and I will solve for now g of -1. When I do that, I get 3 plus 2, which is also 5. So B cannot be one of our answers because 5 isn't less than 5. All right, moving along, gotta check C now. So we're looking for f of 0. My y value is 8. So f of 0 is 8. Let's check g of 0. All right, when I plug in 0 here, -3 times 0 is 0. So therefore, g of 0 is 2. F of 0 is 8, so C is our first correct statement that we have going on here because 8 is big. Option D says that f of 1 is less than g of 1. So f of 1, I look all the way up here, that's the vertex. So f of 1 is equal to 9. Let's figure out what g of 1 is. All right, so -3 times 1 is -3. -3 plus 2 is -1. So f of 1 is 9, g of 1 is -1. So D can also not be one of our options. It doesn't give us a true statement. Our final option here is E, and it's saying that f of 2 is greater than g of 2. So when I look at f of 2, all the way up here, f of 2 is equal to 8. Now I'm going to solve for g of 2. So I will plug in a 2. -3 times 2 is -6. -6 plus 2 is -4. So E also has to be a correct choice because 8 is greater than -4. Once again, here we are dealing with a question that seems way harder than it actually is. It says the function r of x represents the radius of a circle for a given area x. A graph of the function is shown in the figure. According to the graph, what is the approximate average rate of change in the radius of the circle as the area increases from 3 square feet to 7 square feet? So off the bat, we do not need to know anything about circles, about its area, about its radius. None of that matters in this problem. The only thing that matters in this problem is the words average rate of change, and that we're going from 3 square feet to 7 square feet. All right, so looking at our graph, the x-axis is talking about the area in square feet. So looking here, this is where it is 3, and we want it going to 7. When I look at the points for that, I've got 3, 1, and I've got 7, 1.5. The words average rate of change, if you're ever being asked for rate of change, you literally just need to find the slope of the line. So I'm calculating the slope of this distance right here between 3 and 7. One thing that you definitely should know for testing is the slope formula. So that formula is y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1. Just by looking at this now, I can go ahead and take my values. I always label these moving from left to right. So this is the first x that I see, I'll call that x1. This is the first y that I see, I will call that y1. This is my second x, so that's x2, and this is my second y, so that is y2. So y2 minus y1 is 1.5 minus 1. And then x2 minus x1 is 7 minus 3. When you go ahead and simplify this, 1.5 minus 1 is just 0.5, and 7 minus 3 is 4. This question was in the calculator section of your practice test. So in this case, you can now just literally use your calculator to divide 0.5 by 4, or you can just do it by hand. And when you do that, you end up getting 0.125, which is option A here. A random sample of 200 teenagers participated in a taste test. Each teenager picked 4 choices of fruit drink labeled A, B, C, and D, and then we're asked to pick a favorite. The table shows the results of this taste test. Based on the information, which of the given statements are true, select all that apply. Here, we've got the table, we've got the amount of boys, girls, the total, and those that preferred A, B, C, and D, and their totals. First things first, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to check option A. So it says 40% of the participants were girls. The total amount of girls is 80. The total amount of participants is 200. So in this case, there were 80 girls out of 200 total. This question was on the calculator section of the practice test. So in order to change this into a percent, you would simply just do the numerator divided by the denominator. In your calculator, you would get 0.4. And in order to make that a percent, move the decimal 2 spaces to the right and you get 40%. So A is a correct choice. If you didn't know how to convert it, you could have also known that a percent is always out of 100. In order to make this have a denominator of 100, I would divide top and bottom by 2, which would give me 40 over 100, which is automatically 40%. I'm going to go ahead and check option B now. So it says 70% of the participants preferred A. So I know that my total amount of participants is still 200, and the amount of students that preferred A was 70. 70 out of 200 in this case, based on what I just said, cannot be a correct answer. 70 out of 100 is 70%. 70 out of 200 is not. Checking option C now, it says 20 out of 120 of the boys preferred D. So looking at my totals now, I'm talking about the total number of boys, which is 120, and the amount of boys that preferred D is 20, so that's 20 that preferred it out of 120 total. C is definitely another correct option. Moving right along to option D, it says 10 out of 35 of the participants who preferred B were girls. So I'm looking now at the total amount of people that liked B. So the total is 35. The amount of girls who preferred B is 10. So that would be 10 girls out of the 35 total. D is another correct option. The final one to look at now is option E, and it says the proportion of boys who prefer C is equal to the proportion of girls who prefer C. So C is right here. This is the boys that prefer it, the girls that prefer it. If you notice, okay, 30 boys preferred C and 30 girls preferred C. So those are the same, but we're talking about a proportion. So I've got to use these totals here. And for boys, the proportion would be 30 out of 120. For girls, it would be 30 out of 80. So E is not a correct choice in this case. We just had A, C, and D. The question that we're looking at now is talking about estimating the population of elephants. So as you can see, we have a table with a bunch of different years, base years, and the estimated number of elephants. The problem is telling us that we can estimate the elephant population using this expression, 2,649 times 1.045 to the power of B, where B is the number of years since 1995. What does 2,649 represent? In order to answer this, you don't need to use the table really. All that you need is some common knowledge of exponential functions and exponential models. So the formula for a basic exponential function is f of x equals a times b to the x power. B stands for our constant ratio. So B is the amount that every single time we are increasing by through multiplication. And A stands for our initial value. Our initial value is basically when x is equal to 0. So when it's asking, what does 2,649 represent? It's in the same spot that A is in, right? It's being multiplied by our constant ratio to some power. So this value is representing our initial amount. If you take a look, we're talking about years since 1995. So that means that 1995 is like year 0 in this case. B has to be the correct answer because we're talking about the predicted number of elephants that we started with. Then all of these values are talking about the years since and the predictions that we made.